Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Milk. What's
I'm
up, Milk?
back.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're back, and a lot of things have happened since we last spoke.
A lot, a lot has happened since we last spoke.
So,
Some of it I can kind of go into, and some of it I got to tiptoe around her.
yeah. So last
I
time we
mean,
talked, you were going for national of the Chosen Few Motorcycle Club. And how long were you part of that club?
16 and a half years.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
well,
2000 November, October 2009. But
wow.
yeah, how I said that I came in Phoenix. So 2009 in Phoenix was my that was my birthday, as they call it in the club. That's where I was birthed.
And you were hanging around with Dahuru and all
Yeah,
these other clubs, right?
Nauru was my club that I came from. Yeah, which I was just in Vegas yesterday. I bought this truck, so I was dealing with this truck issue, and there was a function last night, so I went out and I saw a bunch of them. But I saw Sin, and when I say I sin, a lot of people think it's the Sin City Disciples, but it's Self-Inflicted Nuts. It's a sport bike club in Vegas, and when I first tried to join Dahuru, I didn't have a Harley, so they told me only American made bikes. I had a Busa. The Hayabusa was my first bike, so they sent me to Sin. I learned a lot being with them. Fred, Ruger, Mr. C, Show Enough, which also came over here. He came to Chosen Few later on, but there's a lot of good guys over there. Los, Jay, rest in peace. That I learned a lot from being in that sport bike club before I ever climbed the ladder.
Did you ever think you would leave Chosen Few?
Never, no. I had everything on me that said CFFL. I didn't wear they got a patch that's sewn on it says the forever patch, chosen few, forever, forever, chosen few. And I always felt like people put that stuff on and what's forever to the death. And it sounds messed up when I say it because I thought it was forever, and that's what CFFL was, chosen few for life. But some of my decisions after what happened to me still based it upon that. I didn't, I could have did a few other things, could have did a lot of other things, and I chose to go the way I went because of how I was taught when I came in the club. It was the winner. So since you opened that can of war, it's funny because I was watching all the videos to like where did we even lift off, and I think it was 5 or 6 where I was like, I'm running for national, which would be this year, and it's the politics that bit me, and they that's what it's about. I mean, currently I'm supposed to be out bad over something that started over a suspension because I spoke to some disciples. And again, I'll leave it at that. And then it turned into something else. I went from a suspension to the next day I was out pending. And then once I made the decision to go to Soul Brothers, I was told I was put out bad. So again, it's there's a timeline to the story, and that's why I tell everybody, anybody can tell somebody something. They can tell you I'm out bad, or tell you, but now let's go to the timeline of how did we end up here? Because when you say how did we end up here, that's it definitely has nothing to do with money. And a lot of people already know. I ain't even got to really spill it. It's about the politics. It was about that national seat.
And you were a president, right?
Yeah, yeah. And some of that is again, it's the inner workings of the way it's done. Like if I get suspended, I'm not active. I can't run. So it puts it into play that what they were doing and how they were doing it. And I think they thought that I was just going to sit down and just take it. And I would have took the suspension. I would have argued with people that knew that I wouldn't have been suspended until July, so I still should have been able to run. But I would have took that, especially for what the suspension was for. It was bogus, especially when you got other people that talk to other clubs. And I had just said in one of our interviews, like having relationships and being able to network and call people from other clubs to have that conversation, like how do we fix this? How do we resolve something? And that was one of my biggest things for Chosen Few was getting it back. Like right now, a lot of people are scared to come around the club or hang around because they don't want to get jumped on, or they feel like they'll get caught in the crossfire or something. So for me, it was like, how do we get back to the riding and the fun? And that's why I said in one of them other videos, let's make Chosen Few fun again. You gotta make it where people want to come around. I get the whole dynamic. It's all family, no friends, and we fuck with us. And when you get that big, I mean, you really don't have to worry about anybody coming around. There's other aspects to look at it that make you say you want people to support. I mean, I was out and I was in between things, but when you go to a rare breed party, or like I just went to the Soul Brother function in Phoenix, that was like 80,000 people that came around. And that's not people that are under their umbrella. These are just clubs that party with each other and want to get away and ride a bike. Just like people would go to bike week. People travel to California or travel back east to go to Kings of the South.
Yeah.
People want to go like the roundup, the black biker roundup. You know, it's an event people go to be able to hang and kick it with other people. I mean, at the end of the day, the motorcycle is the common denominator here. We all ride motorcycles, or at least are supposed to ride the motorcycle, and that's what brings us together. And then the people that support or come around because they like what they, the partying, or because of the women that come around, but still the common denominator is the motorcycle. And so for that matter, people want to go places and look at each other's bikes, or see who got the fastest bike or the loudest stereo, putting the fun in it, the bike games, these picnics and stuff. There's a lot of people that don't sign up for the politics and don't want to be involved in the politics. But again, there's levels to the lifestyle.
Say the club is having a problem with one group, another club somewhere in the country, maybe in another area, they're not having problems with them, right? So, how do you distinguish whether you're good to even talk to these people? Do they say no talking to any of these people? Is that like a rule or something?
Well, no, when no contact means no contact. But I mean, again, you got people that you know don't talk to Stacks. Okay, well, you're not monitoring my phone calls, or or I see you over at Chico's house. Well, they didn't say don't go to Chico's. So if I see Stacks at Chico's and that's where we talk, it's where we talk. It's one of those. There's other places. So to answer that, it's more of a there are clubs that are if we got a problem in one place, it's across the board. And then you got people that are it'll stay in the area that it's at. And even with chosen few, they were for the most part, if it was in one area, it was supposed to be across the board. But again, you got people that were trying to fix things, so it wasn't necessarily, you got to go all the way back to the wheels and the stuff that was going on back then to say, if there was no contact, you got people in different states that went to school with each other or grew up with each other, and then they decided to get into motorcycles, whether together or at separate times, but now have joined different clubs, and now there are, whether they're diamonds or they're outlaws. And so now I grew up with you, I went to school with you, we done played with women together, like we've done a lot together, but now we're in different clubs, and now those clubs are beefing or really doing something to each other. So stay away from each other. Well, it's one of those things like, I'll go after the guys, but I won't come after you because
Yeah.
of our. And you got actual relatives, brothers and cousins, and I would say fathers that are in rival clubs. So it's kind of hard to put stipulations on people or expect people to stay away from somebody that they grew up around. I think really it just comes down to what your conversations are, what you talk about, and as long as you're not talking club business, then it might be it might turn the other cheek. But I think with this situation, it was looking for a scapegoat to be able to. This is the angle to get me out of running. So
Weren't you gonna run for the national before in the past too? But they said it was too early or something?
yeah, yeah. So when I first came in the club, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the again, I mean, I fell in love with the history of the club, and for some reason, people were contacting me from other areas, like We liked it. It's mixed. How do we get down? And when I would take it to the ups, they would be like, "Well, you're already talking to them," and there was no
Protocol to how you
of
do it,
how
right?
to set it up. So they pretty much was like, "You got it, run with it." So how I originally started it and to where it's at today has grown, and it's a whole different. And of course it should be how it is today, because when you got that many people trying to come back west for how I had set up, it's easier to deal with their regions. But the OGs at the time, there was a lot of them and they voted it down because there was a time frame. You had to have so much time in the club to run for national, and I was coming up off the probation period, and they chopped the time frame down so that right when I came off probation, it messed with when the elections was coming up, so I would have been able to run. And again, that's how Bishop and I had that first conversation where it
Yeah,
was
but
like,
someone else was running. He wanted to run, right?
yeah. So, and he's been in the seat ever since. So, again, I wouldn't change it. Like, even if I was to go back, no, well, that day, I would say, even knowing what happened today, I wouldn't change then. I would still have sat down and let him run it because, like he said, I I didn't know chosen few like that. I was learning it myself. So in setting it up, but also the relationships with other clubs, I didn't have those relationships back then with a lot of the other diamond clubs, just other clubs in general. So as I grew in chosen few, relationships grew. But again, I got out and rode my bike. I went to the East Coast on ground numerous times. I rode with other clubs on get-togethers and rides, building those relationships. So to go back, I would still say Bishop was the right man for the job back then. I mean, hell, shit, Big J could have been the right man for the job back then, but I wasn't that guy back then to run for national. Whereas today, yeah, I could have definitely done the job.
So if
So,
you say you were still in the club and you did get national spot, what would have been your angle and what would you have done for the club?
well, what can I say, and what can I word in another way? First off, there's relationships that I would have mended immediately because the stuff is not a club issue. It was more. It became, but it didn't start that way. So there's relationships that I definitely would have fixed. Then just the issues, the beefs that we got would have been the other thing. When you're fighting on so many different fronts, it's hard to watch your back with one club when you got numerous clubs gunning for you. Or again, you're losing people to these other clubs, and now you got people that know internal information that can use it against you. My biggest thing was giving the club back to the club. The body, the body wanted more of a say how it used to. Everything would be a vote, and it's gotten away from that. So it was more of a giving the club back. There's more to it,
Yeah.
and any of the chosen few that watch this will understand it and get it. There's things that I can't say or won't say, but it's deep, but there's OGs, and then there's guys that have been in the club in 5, 8, even 10 years that are like what they came into and what it is today is not that. I did have a call. I had a guy from the Midwest call me, and this was about a year ago, because a lot of people thought the elections was last year, July of 25. So I had people calling and was like, "Hey, are you going to tighten up or loosen up?" I think that's the way he had worded it. And I said, I guess a little bit of both, because there's things that definitely were changed that probably shouldn't have been changed, and then there's things that
Needed to
that,
change,
that we
right?
weren't doing. It probably should have, and would have probably made people do what they're supposed to be doing. One of the other key things is again, giving the club the say back versus just an individual, or an individual and the few that are around them having this is what we're doing, boom. The body, the presidents don't have that vote where it used to be. And so now when you get certain things that are happening, trying to be mindful of my words, there's things that are happening that individuals aren't liking, and for that matter, it's like change was coming. And I think maybe he had things that he wanted to do that he needed more time to get done. So this was a way to hold on to the seat. A lot of people that have come in have seen definitely a change in the club and a direction that the club is going. So for that, it's still a rich history. And again, and I want to take that and spin it into to why, well, to why I went where I went, because that was a hiccup and a problem. And even though he threw shit on the wall to see what would stick, I mean, blatantly, I wasn't out for what he was trying to paint the picture as. And
So there's rumors out there that you're out for another reason.
yeah, they're putting it out that it's money, and it's not. It's like, again, the original reason was because I spoke to some disciples in Vegas, and then something happened 2 weeks later, and then they called me about it, and I'm like I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't know nothing about that. So how you tie me to that? And that's where the suspension comes into play, and
Yeah.
then it snowballed from there. But again, you got to go back to when we came off COVID. We moved mother to Houston because California was still closed to being able to function. So that year we had everything in Houston, and I got into it with somebody, and they suspended me for conduct unbecoming an officer. I didn't agree with it. I would do it again because of the situation. But I took the punishment, and in front of the board, I told them, I'll be your Huckleberry. Just make sure it's across the board, because there's a lot of people that get in trouble and then they get a smack on the hand or it gets swept under the rug. The punishment is not there. So if you're going to punish me, then do it to the ones. I'm the vice national. So if I get suspended, then a fucking hang around should get suspended. That's what I started telling people. Like, if the number two can get it, anybody can get it. It's like when you get in trouble with the police, give you a ticket, you can not pay the ticket, say fuck that ticket, and then when eventually the warrant and then they catch you, now you got to go to jail, or you can
Yeah.
just pay the fine, be done with it, and get on back with your life. So
Yeah.
when you get in trouble in these clubs, and you take the punishment and get back in it. Now, as quick as I say that, again, I got fingers pointing back at me. That's like, well, listen to what you just said. Now, like I said, I got suspended in Houston. Then I got suspended at our 50th because of letting a club come that, again, 50 years, these guys are coming to pay homage. They weren't coming to start beef. They weren't warring. I mean, whatever the issue was in another area, it wasn't there. And these guys came with their girls. They came to buy some drinks, 50 years, but I took that. Okay. Then I get in trouble again. But this last time was, it just so happened to be the same club, and I'm like, bro, you guys keep going and now I just feel like you're just going after me for what? Like, because up until I got suspended for the vice national, I'd never been in trouble in this club. I never did anything to get in trouble, suspension or fines. Like, I was, I wasn't a model member, but I wasn't doing stuff that I wasn't a loose cannon that always was in trouble and always getting it. But like I got a brother Chill, he'll tell you he stayed suspended, but he did his suspension and he came back. And he never just tried to go somewhere else. And when I told him what I was doing, he was upset with me. But again, the suspension turned into I'm out pending. Why am I out? And then you tried to do this to me back on the 50th. You And I said thank you to Bishop, but when he was like, "Yeah, they wanted you out the club," so you got people on a board that don't have half the time in that I have. Some combined don't have half the time or the time in I got, but yet they want me out of the club for something that happened that this wasn't. I didn't put people's lives in danger, so you want me out of the club? Okay, so then you fast forward to this, and it's like you want me out of the club pending that I show up, which I knew what was going to happen. You were either I would go in there and the meeting's over, so now I can't run, but you'll tell me, okay, you can be a member and never hold a position again, or I mean, I got time and miles. Even when they bumped it up to the 15 years, I got the time and miles in to retire. You can retire. But I didn't want to. And I felt like with this national seat, I knew I had 5 years left. I had a year. If I lost the election, I got to go to mother and put the year in, hands down. And I would have asked for retirement after I did that year. But if I won, I was going to try and rectify the club and give the club back to the club. And then in 2030, whoever has that seat has that seat. I don't need back to back, or I don't need a legacy or in that seat. It was about trying to do what's right by the club, and that's where I was at with it. When I came in the beginning, there was a few brothers. Well, really, it was Soul Brothers and East Bay Dragons. Soul Brothers was definitely the brother club. That's what we were taught, that they could call us prospect. They sit in our meetings. We could go in their meetings. Some of them had keys to each other's clubhouses. Those were our brothers. And if you were going to go somewhere for whatever, this didn't work out, because at the time they weren't a diamond, you could go there and there'd be no blowback. Even with all the little stuff that was going on over time, over the last few years, it's more like cousins fighting, relatives fighting. So it was never us shooting or taking each other's stuff. It was more of little squabbles, and it was more of okay, well, stay away from them. Just, you don't go to their clubhouse, they don't come to your clubhouse. We see them in public, open arms. And so for me, I had never run across a soul brother that had shunned me. I mean, I walk up. I don't wait for people to come to me. I walk up and speak to everybody. But anytime I would see a soul brother at a function, I would always go up and speak. And not once did any of them be like, I ain't talking to you, or turn and walk away. I always still got love. So I know today a lot of them coming in don't understand the dynamic of how it was then. But what I was taught, I ran with it. So I had that meeting, and that's where I ended up.
Is Soul Brothers a ethnic club? Does it really even matter the out bad status? And were people shocked to know that you weren't in the club anymore?